I figured there would be some interest in a CR500 build, but I never could have anticipated how much interest. Over 100,000 of you watched the first episode of this series where I introduced this 1988 Honda CR500 and tore it down to the frame. As I said in episode 1, this will be a resto mod build where I improve, modernize, and customize different areas of the bike while doing my best to maintain the essence of this big bore two-stroke that was being ridden well before I was born. Since episode 1, I've spent some time in Photoshop playing with different possible color combinations for this bike, and I posted an Instagram poll asking you guys what color the rims should be, and the result was overwhelmingly gold. So I started playing with different possibilities of red and gold combos, and right now I am debating between a red and blue seat cover, as I personally think that the red, gold, and blue is just a little bit busy, while a focus on red and gold with those black accents is a really nice look. I really like the idea of a completely blacked out engine, similar to the CR250 build I did, but I'm still debating on the color of the cylinder head. Fathead Racing offers billet cylinder heads with compression release for the CR500, so that is what I intend to run on this bike. Fathead offers countless color options for these cylinder heads, but right now, my primary two choices are red, like the CR250, or gold to match those rims. I am actively using your comments and feedback while I build this bike, so leave your thoughts down in the comments below and go follow me over on Instagram if you want to get in on those polls. And remember, one of you will win the CR500 when it's done. Building these bikes and bringing them back to life is my favorite part of the process, and meeting giveaway winners from the past few bikes has been absolutely incredible experiences. You guys entering to win these bikes is what continues to make these projects possible, so thank you. If you would like to get yourself entered, the link is on screen and down in the description below. For this project, it is important to me to maintain as many of the bones of this bike as possible. So what exactly are those mods going to be in Resto Mod? Well, from your feedback, I've gathered at least one critical upgrade to be made, and that is to ditch these 1988 forks and replace them with something a little more modern. I happen to have this 2021 Honda CRF450R completely framed at the moment, so I have these forks and triple clamps available to test with the CR500 frame. I put the frame on my scissor lift stand and then spent some time visually inspecting the differences between the triple clamps. First of all, the steering stem on the newer clamp is about a ½ inch longer and it is a larger diameter. The steering bearings are a couple millimeters different for both the inner race and the outer dimensions as well. Fortunately, All Balls has a conversion chart where you can input the frame you're using and the triple clamps you're using, and they will sell you appropriately sized bearings for the application. As for the steering length difference, I will need to have a spacer made, or find a different clamp that accepts the CR500 steering stem. The other issue with these triple clamps are the steering stops are nowhere close on the triple clamps. And if you look at the hole locations for the front fender, you will notice for the CR500, all 4 bolts are on the same plane, while these CRF clamps step up for the front fender. Finally, the front number plate would require some customizations of the triple clamp as well. At this point, I called Daniel Schmidt, who is a suspension tech and a Honda guy, so I picked his brain on the different generations of Honda forks and triple clamps and how their sizes and designs have changed over time. This conversation left me thinking that using a set of 49mm Showa forks and the corresponding triple clamps, such as the ones from this 21 CRF450, would require more problem solving than running some 47mm Showas from an older generation Honda, namely the 2002 to 2007 CRF450R, and of course the corresponding 250s. Fully rebuilt and revalved 47mm Showas are regarded as quality forks, and they are undoubtedly better than these ones from 1988. With my research here done and a decision made, I hopped on MxLocker and sourced a set of used Honda triple clamps for just $60 and a set of forks for $550. If you are unfamiliar with MxLocker, it is a marketplace for motorsports where you can find new and used parts, gear, and more. Before buying retail, I like to check MxLocker for a good deal. Head to the website or download the app and browse over 200,000 new and used dirt bike parts, and you can use the code KP10 to save yourself $10 on your first purchase. Thank you to MxLocker for not only building a great platform, but supporting the channel as well. The The triple clamps will get the full treatment with prime wheels and Cerakote, and the forks will be completely rebuilt and revalved, so I don't need them to be perfect, but I do need them to be in good shape, and both of these appear to be. And while I wait for those new front end components to arrive, I've got about a million more things I can be doing on this build, so let's tear into this 500cc two-stroke engine. This engine is grimy, and I got a couple comments on the first video wondering why I didn't wash this thing first. Great question. I should have. It is winter here, it's negative 29 degrees outside, I can't use my power washer, this bike didn't have a front brake, making loading and unloading it to go to the car wash a little sketchy. Yes, I should have washed it, but I didn't. That said, this grime is so caked on that a power washer would have barely scratched the surface. I removed a radiator hose to reveal a busted water pump housing, just as this comment said I would find. By utilizing maximum effort, I got the second cylinder head hose removed as well. I also opted to remove the flywheel and stator before washing the engine, as water wouldn't necessarily hurt the stator, but there's also no real reason to subject it to a wash like that. My Tusk piston stop tool made flywheel removal easy, and I also removed the Woodruff key from the crankshaft so that I don't accidentally lose it in the sink. I plugged the remaining holes to minimize the water in the engine, and then moved it to the sink. I'm utilizing some Muck-Off motorcycle cleaner here, which is pretty darn effective at helping to break up this grime. Muck-Off has a full line of cleaners, and they're offering 20% off everything using the code Kincaid20. This was a long process. Grime like this doesn't come off easily no matter what you use, and I continually sprayed and scrubbed for a good hour, removing 37-year-old dirt from this engine to prepare it for disassembly. Finally, satisfied with the cleanliness, I brought it back into the garage. I went for the snap transition and went to grab my engine stand, but I forgot the RM125 is already using it. Too many frames. Hang tight. The RM125 engine is making sure the freezer stays shut. And we're ready to rock and roll here. Let's see what we've got for oil in this thing. Oh, wow. Oh my God. Freaking breaker bar. Oh my God. Wow. This thing had to come off the blocks and get clamped to the bench since that oil drains so tight. Let's see if we can get it now. There it goes. Ooh, that's a lot of coolant. That is nothing but coolant. Ah, crap. Oh, there comes a little oil. There's some oil in there. Ugh, not what you want to see. And while I let that gnarly sludge mixture drain, I worked on getting the final coolant hose removed from the engine, which was a task of its own. Oh, come on! Oh, I didn't mention that I'm actually sick. I'm just living on ibuprofen and willpower right now. Oh. And with that, engine disassembly could properly commence. During disassembly, I kept better track of case bolts than I normally do, as I don't know for sure if I will be replacing or replating these bolts. I think being an 88, there is something to be said for reusing as much as possible down to the smallest bolt. This water pump housing was tight as you might expect after 37 years, but thankfully the engineers at Honda did put a tiny little lip on the bottom edge where I could pry with a screwdriver. You never want to pry between actual mating surfaces, which is a little foreshadowing for later in this video. I popped the outer followed by the inner clutch cover, which required just a little persuasion, and I was generally pleased with what I saw. Wow. I preemptively broke the nut loose for the primary gear since I still had that piston stop tool installed, and then moved on to removing the clutch. When I removed the clutch pack, I was a bit stumped by the fact that this lifter that pushes the pressure plate would not come out. I double-checked the parts diagram and the service manual to make sure I wasn't missing anything, but it seems like it was simply seized inside the shaft somehow. I proceeded to remove the lock tab and the clutch nut in hopes that maybe I could use the basket itself as a sort of slide hammer. Also, 2 for 2 on the Motion Pro clutch tool so far. I like this thing. My idea with the clutch basket didn't work at all, and I then tried to use my crank bearing puller to yeet this thing out, and that idea wasn't even close.
I then decided to try pliers, but I wanted to be careful as this part is not readily available.
Oh, wow. That easy. What the hell, dude?
As it turns out, that lifter was somehow stuck to the clutch push rod, and according to the parts diagram, there is supposed to be a ball in there. I'm not sure if the ball is smashed into the lifter or missing, but I will need to figure that out. I will show you this in a little more detail once the engine is fully apart. To be honest, disassembly from here went smoothly for a reasonably long time. Enjoy this song from Nothing Good until we hit our next snag.
Oh, this thing stinks, dude. This motor smells.
Let a young man's spirit gone, shoulders low from the weight he had on. Ask that young man what's got you down, what's got you hanging on my side of town.
Big boy! That is a big two-stroke piston right there. Holy cow. That's the first time I've ever seen inside a 500 cylinder. Oh, there's a third one.
Once I had the cylinder nuts removed, I began trying to work the cylinder off of the case studs. This is when I noticed someone had previously attempted to solve the same task with a flat blade screwdriver. There is damage to two spots on both the crankcase and cylinder, and hopefully it doesn't span too far into the mating surface. Shortly after, I made this discovery.
Oh, whoa! Check that out. I just pushed the piston down to try and make the cylinder removal a little easier, and that piston is cracked, baby. Ow! Mother!
And that lovely outburst was me being careless and letting a massive C-clamp fall off the bench and directly onto my toe. My toe actually did turn black and blue after that. Catch me on Feet Finder. Life goes on, and cylinder removal continued. With the cylinder locating pins surely rusty, the only real way I've found to do this is patiently and with a dead blow hammer. I imagine if you whack the cylinder hard enough you could damage it, but the way I'm doing it here won't damage the cylinder, and I slowly and evenly work the cylinder up on each side. Check out my interesting swing method here. And my dad is going to cringe when he sees me accidentally drop this rod. Sorry, Dad.
Look at the freaking size of that piston. Holy cow. Delicious coolant mixture on the crank. That's what we like to see.
Forget about that girl I used to know. Leave your problems at my door. Don't concern yourself with what has come before. Put a little action in your love. Get to building for that girl you're dreaming of. Give her more than you ever gave before. Take it easy. Take it.
Cases split and disassembled, I began to organize, overall incredibly pleased with the quality of these engine components. I sorted and labeled different bags, organized parts that appear to be good to go after first inspection, along with parts that need work, parts that won't be reused at all, and maybes. The crank actually spins great, the rod doesn't have any up and down play, so it may be totally usable but should have the rod bearing replaced. The cylinder is in reasonable condition, but has some minor score marks and one noticeable horizontal imperfection along the exhaust port that can catch a fingernail. The cylinder and case surfaces I don't love, but they don't impact the entire mating surface. I could consider having the cases machined down a tiny bit and then running another gasket, but I'm unsure if that's necessary. The crankcase also has what looks like endless little micro fractures in the metal, but it's on both halves and all the way around, so I would imagine that's how these were made, but if you know otherwise, please let me know. For the clutch, the basket is in impressive shape with some minor notching, but to be honest, it's usable and could be filed. I have not yet looked at basket availability to consider replacing it. Now here's a look at the clutch push rod. It is slightly flanged on one side, so it was stuck inside the transmission shaft and could only come out one way. Looking at the part number online, I do not think it is supposed to be flanged. Here is the other end, which clearly has some metal sticking off of it that shouldn't be, and I can't really tell if the ball is stuck inside this lifter or not, but I will take a closer look and report back. The outer clutch cover does have 2 deep divots in it. They could be smoothed out, but it's enough height difference that it will be noticeable. I wonder how Cerakote over JB Weld would turn out. The inner hub and pressure plate look awesome. I thought this crush washer for the oil drain was rather comical, and the rest of the components look perfectly usable after an initial inspection and are all bagged up and organized, with the exception of course being that damaged inner clutch cover.
So that engine teardown could have gone just a little bit better, and it could have gone a whole lot worse. For a 37-year-old engine, I am very pleased with what I found inside there. Pretty much only one major component, being that inner clutch cover, is damaged and will need to be replaced. Obviously the piston is cracked, but that is a part I would be replacing anyway. I undoubtedly have my work cut out for me, but I am really excited about it, and I'm glad that you guys are too. Leave me all of your thoughts down in the comment section. Colorways, parts, upgrades, other suggestions, let me know your thoughts. If you want to follow along with this series, the RM125 build series, and tons of other content I have planned for this year, be sure to click that subscribe button. I'm on the road to 200,000, completely bonkers to think about. Can't thank you guys enough for the support. If you want to win this bike when it's done, link is in the description, and there's one more thing to do before I leave you guys. I get to put a CR500 piston on my shelf.
Ask that young man what you're running from. In all your traveling, you didn't find no song to hum. Lucky young man.